What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another very exciting episode right here on the MIgardener channel. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about a very popular topic that comes into our inbox and our comment section of our videos. And it's one that we really like talking about because it's something that is often overlooked. And it's plants that you will quickly regret planting in your garden. They might be beneficial, they might be awesome to have in your garden, but actually in your garden might be another story. These are plants that are very space hogging, rapid growing, and they can be seen as slightly invasive. These are plants that will outcompete your other plants, choke them out for space, sunlight, nutrients, water, things like that. But even though you had good intentions to plant them, they quickly became a nuisance or an annoyance just because they spread very easily or they grow really fast and just kind of take up a lot of space. So those are plants we're going to talk about today, but I'm also going to share with you two ways that we kind of control them to make them not as much of a nuisance, still while getting their benefit. Because a lot of these plants are completely intentionally planted. They're not weeds by any means. They're actually plants that we want in the garden. But like I said, if you plant them in the garden, which we'll get into what I mean by that. If you plant them actually in the garden, then they can take over and become a nuisance. So let's get into what those plants are right now, or at least some of them, and then we'll get into two of the ways that we help control them while we can still enjoy them. So let's go. The first plant species that you never want to plant in the garden is mint. Mint is one that I absolutely love. We have quite a few different mint plants here. We have a pineapple mint, we have a chocolate mint, we have a peppermint, we have a is called a Corsican mint. It's the world's smallest mint. We have a spearmint, we have an apple mint, we have a mojito mint. I just love biodiversity, as you guys have probably caught on by now. I love biodiversity. I love the uniqueness that plants provide. And so we have a ton of different mints. We actually have like a little mini mint collection, and we're always trying to find those next ones to add to them and just kind of see what's out there because they're so cool and they're all different in some way. But mint is a plant that will take over your garden and absolutely wreak havoc and just give you a fit of a time because how easily it spreads. In fact, this is how easily it spreads. We just planted this chocolate mint here this year, and it has already, what it has done is coming close. You can check this out here, and this is exactly why they can become very invasive, because they do not stay where they are planted. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So mint is actually a vine. It grows in a bush, but when it gets too tall, what happens is it falls over. And when it falls over, what it does is it sends out these little runners here, and you can see these are all facing up. That's because they are all beginning to root. And so if you look at the bottom of each one of these little nodes here, these are, well, they're free plants, yes, but each one of these little nodes will set down roots, and it quickly can get out of control. Those all set down new plants, those will set down new plants, and those will set down new plants, and pretty soon this whole space here becomes chocolate mint. It can take a lot of maintenance. Here's another one here. You can see if they get too long, they start falling over, and they will set down roots as soon as they touch the soil because they propagate very easily. It allows you to make a lot of free plants. Like if you're someone who sells for the farmer's market, or you have a lot of friends that, just want free plants, you can get a lot of free plants out of mint very, very easily. But if you let them root too long, they'll take over a full space. Now, the next plant that can spread very easily and can easily become invasive is chives. Now, chives are probably the most notorious of these plants because we all plant them with good intention. In fact, we had them at our old house, and within 2 or 3 years, they'd become so invasive that they were almost impossible to eradicate. The seeds from the seed heads blow everywhere. And what happens is then those sprout and those produce seed heads and those blow everywhere. And they're wonderful in a location. But in many locations where you don't want them, they can really become pesky. In fact, like I said, at our old house, we had them in the sidewalk cracks in just 3 years, mind you. We had planted just one small plant like this, thinking it'd be a good idea for some loaded baked potatoes, because that's our favorite thing during the summer. Throw a baked potato on the grill, throw some sour cream inside, and then throw some chives in, and you got yourself a complete meal right there. I could literally eat those all day. But a good idea with good intentions turned very bad very quickly because those seed heads sprouted everywhere. And what happened, we had chives sprouting up in sidewalk cracks. We had chives sprouting up in all of our flower beds. And we had chives also sprouting up in our koi pond. Like our koi pond, nothing is safe from these things. They will sprout everywhere and they just go crazy. So we were every spring we were picking out chives that were growing up in just random locations. And like I said, while it's beneficial and while it's delicious, it can really be invasive. And so one way that we found that we help to control the spreading of this chive is early spring it'll start to form flower heads. These are delicious and they're actually edible and we'll eat them in salads. But you want to eat them before they, just right when they open, but you do not want to let them form seeds. As they form flower heads, we'll just clip them off and pick them off. And what will happen is those plants will eventually die back because they're actually a member of the allium family, and alliums will flower their second year. But what it will also do is it will send down little bulbs. They'll actually divide much like a daylily or a hosta or anything like that. They'll actually form bulbs, and those bulbs down there will sprout new chives. The old chives will die back once they flower, and then the new chives will grow. This guarantees you a continuous harvest year after year without the ridiculous spreading that can happen if you just let it go wild. So clip it back, and if you see a lot of yellowing, that's, like I said, that is very natural. That is the old plant that has since flowered and is just dying back. It's taking all of that energy, pushing out a flower, and once that flower is either spread its seed or dies, the plant dies, and that's just kind of the natural course for life. But it keeps this plant where you wanted it and not where you don't. So let's move on to the third plant that you might quickly regret planting in the garden. All right, so we're here with the third plant that you are quickly going to regret planting in the garden, and that is oregano. Now, I know I'm gonna get a lot of flack for this, but let me say this. I love oregano. We absolutely use so much of it in our cooking and just day-to-day life that oregano is something that we probably use more than any other herb in our family. But no family can use this much oregano. You see, this oregano was started from just one plant. That one plant then turned into 4 plants. Those 4 plants then were divided out, spread throughout the garden, and now there is 6 plants that are about 1.5 feet, 2 feet in diameter, and each spring they then put out flowers, which are great for pollinators. Absolutely great for pollinators, won't disagree there one bit. But if you don't get all those flower heads, you don't clip them back, they will spread seeds, and those seeds will sprout, and they will grow whole new plants. They reseed very easily. The other thing these do is these also, much like mint, once they get too heavy, if they fall down on the ground, they will sprout, or they will grow a whole new plant, basically out of like a runner. They will propagate just by the root touching or by the stem touching the ground. It'll set down new roots, and that'll become a whole new plant. They can quickly overtake a space here where this just started out as good intentions. 3 years ago, we planted, like I said, just 2 small plants here on the corner, and now they're so big that every summer we have to clip them back. And while we get a lot of oregano, it's actually taking up this space far more than we ever wanted, and it's actually choking out one of the hardiest plants in our garden, which is the butterfly bush. We absolutely love, or the bee balm, I should say, not the butterfly bush, but the bee balm. We have this bee balm here, and it's almost choking out the bee balm. So it's just a very aggressive plant. It takes up a lot of space. We don't necessarily, not utilize this plant, but we do regret planting it here because it's almost impossible to keep it contained once it grows. And we want some in the garden, but we just don't want all of this. It's a lot to have here. All right, we're here with the 4th plant that you will quickly regret planting in the garden, and that is dill. Now, I love dill, and I'll be the first to say that dill is a great summertime crop. I mean, it goes in everything for us, from omelets to potato salads, to just, quite literally anything. We'll put dill on everything, from fish tacos to, oh my gosh, like I said, just about everything, to pickles even. We make homemade pickles. But this stuff right here, it's called dill weed for a reason. And that's because it spreads like a weed. But it's very easily contained. It's just if you let it get out of control, that's where things can go wrong. So dill weed, it spreads by seed. It goes to seed very easily, and those seeds have near 100% germination. I guarantee it. Because what we had happen was, at our cottage garden, we let some dill weed go to seed, and it happened when we were away for a couple weeks, We didn't manage the stuff, we didn't cut it back, and what ended up happening was it spread its seed. And when it spread its seed, all those sprouted up. And now in every single bed throughout the entire 3,000 square foot garden, every spring, we have dill seed. It started from just 4 plants that we planted, just 4 plants. 4 plants now spread throughout the entire garden. And now every single spring, we actually have to take a small tined rake and rake the dill sprouts that come up. Might be a great thing, might have good intention, but there's just no way we're going to need all that dill. And if we let it grow, it's going to end up choking out all of our other plants because it grows so quickly and it does take up quite a lot of space once it starts bushing out. So it's just something to consider that if you do plant dill, you know, it does okay in the garden, but it does not play nice once it's in the garden and goes to seed. Just something to consider. So you clip those flower heads back and you should be fine, but watch out for it because it's one that you'll regret very quickly. Here's that other oregano plant I was talking about. This was just from a small little root cutting that we took from that original mother plant, and in 1 year it's done this. So again, like I said, oregano, watch out for it. Watch out for it. And here's the 5th plant that you might quickly regret planting in the garden, and that is strawberries. Now, strawberries are one of my favorite soft-bodied fruits. We will eat them till we pretty much get sick to our stomach during the summer. They are just so delicious. They're just intoxicatingly sweet. They are absolutely incredible. But let me tell you what, when strawberries start going to runner form and they start taking over the garden, it happens starting in early spring and goes all the way till fall. They'll produce runners. And these runners are happening right now, believe it or not. Believe it or not. These little suckers right here form whole new plants that grow. If they touch the ground, well then, I don't have any around me right now because I pulled a lot of them up, but there's some right over next to you there that actually then sprout, grow whole new plants, and yeah, I don't have any in this lane because I really pulled a lot of them out. But once they take hold and they get rooted, they then form more runners, and that runner will form a whole new plant and form all new runners. And they can quickly overtake a space in a matter of a year. Each one of these beds, we started with just 25 plants. In each one of these beds, remember, 25 plants. That's just 50 plants. In just 1 year, we had close to 300 plants. All these beds, we took all the runners and just planted them in, trying to contain them. Those 300 plants, last year we did a video, I think it was titled being forced to throw out 5,000 strawberry runners. It was a whole wheelbarrow full. I'm not even joking when I say a whole wheelbarrow. This thing was mounted to the top of just strawberry runners because we have nowhere else to put them. Once they produce runners and you plant all those runners out and you get a nice bed full, they look great, trust me. But at the end of this summer, we're going to take hedge pruners and we're going to go along the bed and we're just going to trim off all the ones that are hanging off, and we're going to be forced to compost them. There's just nothing we can do with that many plants. And they will spread and spread and spread until they take over a full space. Now, if you have a strawberry farm or you have a lot of space to give them lots of space. Designate a whole patch and just have a strawberry patch. That's great. But if you have a raised bed garden where you have limited space and you need to make sure that things are nice and contained, this might not be one that you want to plant. Or just know that if you do plant it, they take over very, very quickly. And by very quickly, I mean in the blink of an eye quick. So this one is one you really have to watch out for. But it can also be very rewarding. I am not discounting that one bit. We have so many strawberries in here, we're probably going to get, by my estimation, we're probably going to get about 20 pounds of strawberries from these 2 beds here, which is just awesome. We could even maybe get more than that. But this is going to be an incredible year. Definitely one of the best years for strawberries we've ever had. And it's, yeah, it's going amazing. So happy about it, but be careful. All right, we're here with the final 6th and 7th plant that you might quickly regret planting in your garden. One of those is raspberries. Now, raspberries we love. It's probably in there in our top 3 favorite soft-bodied fruits of all time. They're just delicious. They're so nutritious, but they can take over. Every one of their canes, just much like a strawberry, will form roots underneath the soil. And those roots will then pop up just like they are right here, just like they are over there, over here. This started from just 2 plants, 3 years ago. And now we have an entire patch. Now granted, again, not complaining. We're definitely gonna have a bumper crop of raspberries. This is going to be one of the biggest years for raspberries we've ever had. But I'm telling you what, they definitely do not shy away from taking over a space. And they'll grow up, I mean, we even have been mowing them over where they'll grow 2 feet away from where they're originally planted and just pop up in your yard, and I'll just be mowing them over all summer long because they have got to stay contained in this space here. Otherwise, they're gonna be out of control. So that's why we're kind of mowing them over, and we have a designated space for them, which is something that I recommend you guys doing. Is just like I said with strawberries, designate a patch, keep them contained, and just know that you're going to be taking care of them for the next couple years, because I mean, this is crazy. Check this out. So see these plants right here? These are raspberries growing from all the way over here. These plants are what resulted in this. That's like 4 feet from these. You got a plant right here. There's a new plant right here. All of these were never here last year. They just are growing from a root system that goes underneath the soil, and they just keep sprouting up. So pretty soon this whole bed here will be solid raspberries, which I'm not gonna be complaining about. But if this was your garden and you needed to have this space designated for something else, you might be regretting it. All right, and the very final one that I wanted to talk about is actually back here, and it got here because of how invasive it is, and that is chamomile. We planted chamomile in our bed 2 years ago and 3 years ago. Absolutely love it. We make chamomile tea all the time with it. It's a great plant to have. But if this stuff goes to seed, each one of these flower heads, this is not a flower, this is a flower head. It's known as a pseudo petal. This right here is something that will produce 500, 600 seeds in a single flower. Like I said, 500 seeds, 1,000 seeds, 1,500 seeds, 2,000 seeds very quickly, and they'll produce more than that. This plant was just being neglected off in the shade there behind all those raspberry plants, and it produced that many flowers. Those are going to go to seed. You're going to have like 2,000 seeds spreading throughout your garden, and like I said, if you have it in a sunny location with good soil, those will spread even faster. Every single spring we pick out no less than probably 1,500 to 2,000 of the chamomile sprouts. And what we'll do is we'll kind of just rake them in, and hopefully they compost in, and we don't have to pull them all out by hand, because it can be a lot of work to pull them all out. But they're very beneficial, they're very delicious, they're very nutritious to have, but you just have to know how to contain them. And so if you're going to be away for a long period of time, again, it's much like the dill and it's much like the chives. When they go to flower, because the flowers produce seeds, you've got to pick those flowers off quickly. Otherwise, you're going to regret planting them in your garden. And I do just want to take a quick second to note how beautiful of a day it is today. I hope you're having a great day wherever you're at, and I hope the weather is improving and is amazing wherever you're at. Because I'll tell you what, today it's 75 degrees, a slight breeze. So we're back here with our herb garden, and I wanted to talk about 2 ways that we help control these plants, because we do like them, like I said. Now, as I've kind of noted, a lot of these plants that propagate very easily by seed, an easy way to keep them controlled and actually in your garden is just by making sure you keep up with cutting the flower heads off on a timely basis so they don't spread by seed. But the ones that can spread via like root system, or that can create runners and drape all over the place and then start rooting all over the place, those ones need a little bit more care. One of the ways we control them, if they spread by root system, say things like mint or things like raspberries and stuff like that, what we'll do is we'll put them in a container here. The container helps keep them contained. And this way they can't spread their roots out, because the roots they meet a barrier. So they'll quickly fill out this space, and then they'll just run out of space, and they won't be able to spread from there. So that would apply to things like mint, your oregano, even things like raspberries would be great for that. So that's one way we help control that. The last way that I want to talk about controlling is a really easy way if they spread by bulb, or if they are a plant that doesn't take over really quickly, but one that can spread by bulb really quickly. This would apply to maybe some stuff like chives, maybe some stuff like your mint. It doesn't really always apply, but it is a method we've used in the past, and it can work if you only plant seasonally. If you have every intention to pull it out at the end of the year, but you just want to get it for that 1 year, there's a really simple way to kind of keep it contained without allowing it to spread and still having it in your garden. And so that method is by taking the plant and actually keeping it in its container. Now, this is a special note that the container has to be big enough to host this plant. So this is plenty fine here. This is, I think, a 4-inch pot, 3-inch pot, something like that. And so what we want to do is we want to just take the plant, dig a hole, pop it in the ground. Now this might seem crazy, but this is something we've done in the past with really good success, because what this allows the plant to do is it allows the roots to leave the pot, because every pot has drainage holes. The roots will leave the pot and will actually take root in the soil. But this right here does the exact same thing as our raised bed does, where we don't allow the roots to come out and spread because the plant is contained into here. The roots that come out of here are not roots that will multiply into new plants. These are called feeder roots. Feeder roots are different than surface roots. Surface roots can turn into new plants. Feeder roots feed on nutrients and water. So that way you can keep them contained still while being in your garden. So there you go. There are some plants that you might regret planting in your garden, but also have a lot of benefit to actually having around your garden. So hopefully you can keep them contained still while enjoying them, and hopefully these methods of containment work for you. Also, I'd be interested to know if there's any plants down below, let me know, that you might plant that you might also regret that I did not mention here. I'd be interested to know. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you learned something new. And as always, this is Luke from the MIgardener channel, reminding you to grow big or go home. We'll catch y'all later. See ya.